The first thing that I want to discuss is that Finality's back end is now based in *1.6. So this means a faster and more efficient call processing engine that can take advantage of newer multi-core and multi-threaded processors. In addition, there are new codecs available to us that open up a lot of opportunities for future enhancements. So this is Finality's version 5. In this case, it's version 5.2. And the first thing I'm going to show you here are our users. We realized at Finality that more and more often users have multiple extensions. So now, rather than having an extension assigned to a user, we have users who have one or more extensions assigned to them. So this allows us to do some more interesting things in HUD, as well as creates a more cost-effective way for users to have multiple extensions. So if I look through my users list here, I can see that this person has one extension. This person has two extensions, Home Office and Main Office. Since we switched to the user model, we also now have an add user wizard. So when we're going to go and add a user, we have some options here. So we can say, I have an existing user that needs another extension. I want to add a new user and a new extension. I want to add a virtual extension for routing calls. So this is a virtual extension that is not associated with the user, but can be used for call forwarding, such as when your sales manager needs to be able to dial an extension to reach the sales queue or transfer a call into the sales queue, something like that. I want to add a voicemail only extension, so this would be a voicemail box only. And we have another new feature down here, the bulk import tool, or the bulk extension tool. And this allows us to import changes or additions using a comma-separated or .csv file. So you have many changes to do, such as adding users or extensions, and you want to import them all at once using a CSV file. And then if we click here, it brings us to a knowledge base article on that CSV file. This is how it should be formatted. These are the fields, these are the required fields, etc. Over here in extension status, we can see the status of all of our extensions, but beyond that, we also now have this concept of FON score. So FON score is a way for us to determine the quality of the IP connection for each individual phone. For instance, if there's 3 green stars, the IP connection is in great condition. If there's 2 yellow stars, it's moderate condition. There may be some quality issues. And 1 red star means it's no good, and that call is probably, or that phone is probably going to have some issues. If I click into a user, we now see a couple of additional things here. First and foremost, we have licensing settings. So for the new line of products, Finality Professional and Finality Enterprise, you can pick and choose which of your users are call center users. So rather than having the entire server be a call center server, you can have most of your users on our professional level and then add call center agents and just purchase licenses for those agents you want to be call center agents. A little bit more cost effective. Down here we also have our multiple extensions. So I can see options per extension, and we can see that this user has 2 extensions assigned to them. And then we have options down here for adding another extension. Another great new feature, if I click over here into my Groups tab, so we do have a number of new group permissions, including the ability to disallow instant messaging in HUD, for instance. But down here under Groups, if I click into one of my groups, we now have toll restriction. So this allows you to choose which dial plans you want to permit users of the group to have access to. So for instance, I can create an international dialing group. And this is the group of people within my organization who have the ability to dial international phone calls. So I can pick and choose the dial plans that I want to add to this group. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our ACD changes. So for instance, if I come over here to one of my queues, we have a couple new options. The first one that you'll notice here is queue autofill. So rather than having a call come in, we find an agent for that call, and then when another call comes in, we find an agent for that call, and maybe 3 calls come in at the same time and we pass them out to agents one by one. Queue autofill allows us to pass calls to agents as fast as possible. So if an agent is available and 10 calls come in simultaneously, or I should say if 10 agents are available and 10 calls come in simultaneously, then it's just going to put those calls straight on each agent rather than passing them out one by one. Over here we have queue priority. So now not only can you have agent priority within each individual queue, but you can prioritize one queue over another. So that means that if you have a queue for special customers or a queue for, enterprise level customers, platinum customers, whatever you want to call them, you can create a special phone number. Those calls are going to come in, and even if there's 10 calls waiting in your standard queue, if one call comes into your priority queue, that call will be answered first. Likewise, you can also have a lower priority queue. Right below that, we now also have the TTA SLA, which means time to answer service level agreement. This is especially good for third-party call centers that are answering calls on behalf of another organization. So we can put in here 90 seconds, for instance, and that will show us how many calls were answered within 90 seconds when we run the new SLA report, which I'll show you in just a second here. Another new concept in version 5 is reasons. So for our agents, when they log out of a queue, they now have to select a reason for why they're logging off, such as bathroom, or lunch, or shift over. And you can create as many reasons as you want, and then have your agents use those reasons to log off, and then run reports on those reason codes. So that's a great segue into the new reports that we have built in for the ACD system. All of the old reports are still there, however, now we have some new reports in addition, such as the SLA report. So I can run a report that says what was my time to answer, and if I had set, for instance, 90 seconds on one of my queues, I can select all of my queues or just individual queues, and I can view this report. And what this will show me is per queue, well, how many calls met the SLA and how many calls did not meet the SLA. And then of course I have some more detailed statistics down below. We also have a new report that will show you our agent availability. So the reason codes that we set up, I can run a full report on reason codes. And this is going to show me on a per queue basis what the reasons for my agents logging out were. So here we have for this queue, new queue 1223, here's just logged in versus logged out. 1.8% of the time logged in, 98% of the time logged out. And then here we have our logout reasons. So of the time that they were logged out, these are the reasons why they were logged out. And then if we scroll down further, this is going to show all of our queues. Here's the detail. We can also break this out on a per agent basis. So we can see logged in percentage, logged out percentage. If I look at this user, I can see the summary of this individual user's logout reasons. Okay, some other things that are included in version 5. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but we do have a number of new options when configuring SIP trunks and voice over IP trunks. We also have some new settings under options settings. So the first new setting that we have is our phone config download. So this option allows us to choose whether we want to download the configurations for our phones via the LAN, so off of the premise-based server, or via the internet, so that remote teleworkers maybe would go across the internet to download their config. So Finality's data center, and one of the beautiful things about our hybrid hosted environment is that we have the ability to do features such as this. So you can say, you know what, I know we have a premise-based server, but I want all of my phones to get their configuration from Finality's data center. That way, when phones are going in and out of the office, it makes it just a lot easier. So you don't have to open up holes in your firewall. You don't have to worry about FTP, TFTP, any of this stuff. You just set this to via internet, and now you can use Finality's data center to supply the configurations to your phones. And down here under other settings, we have another great setting, enable firewall. So this will turn on the basic settings for the built-in Linux firewall in the operating system. This is great for if you have your server exposed to the internet, or if you have it in a DMZ, or if you just want to turn on the firewall. So we're going to turn on the firewall, and we're going to automatically open up the ports that are needed for the phone system itself. Okay, so enough about the CP. Let me switch over into HUD here, and we can see some of the new improvements that we have in HUD. The first thing is that we have some new supported operating systems. So HUD 3.5 now runs on Mac OS X 10.6, otherwise known as Snow Leopard, as well as Windows 7. The other major improvement to HUD is that linked HUD is now here. So it allows you to see call status, you can barge monitor, you can view and join conference rooms on a linked server, you can retrieve parked calls on a linked server, you can add linked extensions to a queue, etc. So lots of improvements surrounding linked capability. As you can see here, we have Finality's sales team and Finality's Texas sales team both listed in a single HUD. And those are two separate servers. Up here at the top, we have our HUDdy list. So these are the people that you talk to the most. And it's an automatically generated list. You can choose whether to display it at all, and you can choose how many blocks will show up in your HUDdy list, or how many contacts will show up in your HUDdy list. In my case, I have it set to 6. So I see the 6 people that I talk to most often, and they show up right there. And we also have our location setting. So if you remember from the control panel how we had a user, and each user could have multiple extensions, well, this is where that comes into play. So now with a single HUD logon, I can choose, well, do I want to be on the road? This is my soft phone extension. Do I want to use my mobile phone, or a secret location? Some other extension. And so I can pick and choose where I currently am, essentially. Another feature is if I have a call on hold, I don't have to pick up that call to transfer it anymore. I can simply drag and drop a call from the on-hold box to another person, or drag and drop a call from the on-hold box to someone's voicemail without having to pick it up. It's a really great feature for receptionists. Makes everything a little bit more efficient. For queuing, I can now log into my queues right here, which we could do before, but now when I log out, here's where I pick my reason for logging out. Management meeting. And you can also now log out of multiple queues individually. So if I was a member of 10 queues, those 10 queues would be listed here under my single queue, and I could either log out of all of my queues, or I could log out of just 1 or 2 of my queues. I can pick and choose which ones I want to log out of. Another new feature that we've built in, we've always had Barge and Monitor, but now we have Barge, Monitor, and Whisper. So Whisper allows us to speak to our agent, but the customer on the other side of the phone can't hear us. So Monitor, no one can hear us. Barge, both parties can hear us. Whisper, only our employee can hear us. And in addition to that, you now have a notification that can pop up when you're being barged or recorded. So if you have, if I'm barging Casey and Casey also has the permission to barge me, when I'm barging or monitoring or recording Casey, then he's going to see a little pop-up on his screen that says you are being barged by Chris Sherwood. Also notice here that we have 2 different colored of queues here. So the white letter Q in the orange means that this is an agent who's logging in and out. And the black letter Q in the orange means that this is a permanent agent. So when you can set someone to permanent in the control panel, we can now see that, and we can just differentiate between a agent that has the ability to log in and out and an agent that's permanently in a queue. Another feature is we now have a readable server-side chat log. It's something that you can now export. So for those who turn on server-side chat logging on the server itself, it was typically just in XML format, and now there's an export utility that allows you to put that into a format that's much easier to read.